Chris Mannix, host of the Chris Mannix Show, weekday afternoons on NBC Sports Radio, the 24-hour sports talk network. Download the app, subscribe to the Mannix podcast. Check him out at The Vertical. Chris, what's happening, pal?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good, man. I want to get right into some of the big news that's happening. Celtics beat the Warriors last night. All these Warriors fans are starting to get a little scared. Should they be? And what that win last night mean to the Celtics people?
Well, I don't think the Warriors should be nervous at all. I mean, look, it's a problem, but they're not going to go into the postseason with Patrick McCaw as your starter and Matt Barnes playing any type of significant minutes. I mean, you still have a month plus to go. And even if Kevin Durant's injury takes longer than the 4-week projection, you're still going to have time to work him in for a game or two, and then maybe stretch him out a little bit as you get into a first-round series against the Denver Nuggets or the Trailblazers or somebody else you can beat. I mean, they still are prohibitive favorites right now to win the Western Conference, and unless there's a big setback for Durant, I'm not going to think otherwise. The Celtics, they needed that win. Coming off back-to-back loss to the Suns and the Clippers, they needed to get an impactful win. And they're the only team now over the last 2 years that's gone into Oracle Arena and won both those years. So last year they were able to use that win as kind of a springboard. We'll see if they can do it this year. They're just starting to get healthy. Avery Bradley, who is a huge part of what that team does, is getting his legs back after coming off an Achilles injury. They're right there in that mix. A game, 2 games separating them, Washington and Toronto, for that 2 seed. And it's going to be an interesting dogfight as we get down the stretch, not only for them, but for the Cavaliers, are only a couple games up, too.
Yeah, I like it, and I saw a tweet from you about the Wizards. The one thing about the Wizards that's tough to buy into is that road record. But should we start thinking that the Wizards are a legit Eastern Conference Finals team? Can they make a run to the NBA Finals?
Yeah, look, they're a legit conference finals threat right now, and they're going to get better as we progress because they're going to incorporate Bogdanovic into that lineup, and they'll get better off their bench because of it. Look, the Wizards and the Celtics, it's kind of like you have to crawl before you walk. They both haven't had much success in the playoffs for the last few years, and if they can just get to the conference finals, even if they go out in 4 games, which I don't really expect, but even if they did, you have to consider that type of season a win. And Washington, the strides they've taken this year, going from 2-8 to 15 games over 500 now. They're the only team ever in NBA history that's ever done that after the start they've had in the season. It's a tremendous testament to Scott Brooks. I mean, I used to roll my eyes when people would say that Scott Brooks isn't really a great coach out in Oklahoma City, that he just kind of rolled the balls out there for Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Scott Brooks is an elite developmental coach. There's a reason that Westbrook, Durant, Serge Ibaka, Reggie Jackson all thrived under him in Oklahoma City. You're seeing the same type of progress from John Wall, from Bradley Beal, and maybe most importantly, Otto Porter, who might be a max-level guy when he hits free agency this offseason. So they've got the coaching, they've got the backcourt play. We'll see if they have enough to get past Boston, Toronto in that second round.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what Washington does. If they could do something this season. Chris Mannix from The Vertical with us here. You guys spoke about the Pelicans and what has happened to them since the DeMarcus Cousins trade. And, is there any second thoughts by then?
I don't think there's second thoughts right now, and I don't think people should be overreacting to this. I mean, 2 reasons. Number one, you've got 2 alpha males that you're plugging into the same lineup, 2 guys that are used to being the focal point of their team's offenses. You're putting a guy like Cousins into a new system with 2 months to play and no practice time. You would have to catch the ultimate lightning in a bottle to make that actually work. Moreover, in order for those 2 guys to be successful, you've got to surround them with shooting. And the Pelicans right now have the opposite. They've got anti-shooters that are out there. Solomon Hill, whose contract was a disaster the day he signed it, has lived up to that. Drew Holiday has not been a threat from the outside. Dante Cunningham has not been a threat from the outside. As they go into the offseason, I wouldn't think about flipping DeMarcus Cousins. I would make it a priority to just fill my roster with guys that can make jump shots, because you can't guard Cousins or Davis one-on-one. You can do it if you can send multiple defenders and have no fear that someone from the outside is going to beat you.
Chris, we didn't get a chance to talk last week, so I want to get into your article about Sam Hinkie, which drew a lot of attention specifically with our audience and in this market. You said in the piece that you've done a 180, and over the times that we've talked, I feel like a lot of people have changed their look or opinion. Just give us a little overview of that Hinkie piece and some of the key points that really stood out to you when you were writing that piece.
Well, it's tough to see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're going through the throes of an ugly rebuild like Philadelphia did. I mean, 3 straight sub-20 win seasons, and seeing their roster stripped bare in favor of draft picks, guys that are hurt or staying overseas being drafted. It's really tough to watch that and think that there isn't going to be a consequence or some payment for that in the long term. But if you look at Philadelphia, take the 15, 16 teams that are going to be out of the playoff picture this year. Is there anyone's roster you would take over Philadelphia's? Take the teams that are in the playoffs this year. I would argue that probably a third of them would take Philadelphia's roster right now. Philadelphia is in that great place where they have clarity. They know what they are. They know how long it's going to take to get there. And there's not a lot of teams that frankly have that. Would you rather be Philadelphia or Sacramento, which has no idea what it's doing right now? Would you rather be Philadelphia or Atlanta, which is going into the offseason forced to re-sign a 31-year-old Paul Millsap and have two depreciating assets in Millsap and Dwight Howard headlining their team? What Sam Hinkie did is exactly what he set out to do. He built the foundation for a team that can have sustained 50-plus win, play into May type of success over the next 10 years. Now, there are certainly some variables. Will Ben Simmons pan out? Will Dario Saric live up to his expectations? Can they get help in that backcourt? But right now, Sam Hinkie has left the Colangelos with a whole treasure trove of assets and two franchise-type level players in Embiid and Ben Simmons to build around. That, to me, is a job accomplished.
Again, you said in the piece, right, you did kind of a 180 on them. At first, you look at that and what they were doing as this isn't going to work. Is that, when you say you did a 180, what was it? Where did you start and where are you now?
Well, again, I thought there would be a consequence for losing that much.
Gotcha.
I think you have guys that are as bad or play as bad as they are, you develop bad habits. And I thought that was a problem. Now, give Brett Brown credit. He has done the best job he possibly can of trying to stave off those bad habits, and I don't think gets anywhere near enough credit for it. But Sam Hinkie, I was unclear if that was actually going to be a problem for them, and it turns out it hasn't been at this point. I'll tell you what, somebody's going to hire Sam Hinkie again, and he's going to be a better GM as a result of it. He's going to be better because he's not going to make the same mistakes he made the first time around. He'll keep the same philosophy, but he won't be as reclusive when it comes to talking to his staff and to his coaches. He won't be as embarrassingly bad. Think about what Ish Smith did for that team a year ago. Philadelphia still sucked, but Ish Smith made them somewhat respectable over the final couple of months of the season. I think Sam Hinkie won't be as resistant to acquiring those type of players as he was before. So if I'm a team and I'm looking to rebuild, I absolutely are making Sam Hinkie an interview on my list.
Good stuff from Chris Mannix here. Last one for you, Dirk, 30,000. Just the impact he's had. You can make a case that the game looks like it does today in large part because of Dirk, right?
Oh, no question. It's evolved because Dirk Nowitzki, sort of revolutionized the power forward position and changed it from being guys that were plotting kind of enforcers, mid-range shooters, dunkers, into a stretch position. He was the first, consistent 7-footer who was knocking down threes at the rate that he was. And look, you're still seeing the game evolve because of what Dirk Nowitzki brought to it. We are now evolving into the stretch 5. In Philadelphia, Joel Embiid is going to be a 40+% three-point shooter, I think, for a long time. You see Marc Gasol and Brook Lopez, guys that didn't shoot threes before, now they're stepping behind the arc. Kristaps Porzingis is eventually going to be a 5, and he is going to be shooting threes at a high rate. Dirk Nowitzki started something back in 98, 99, and now we're seeing it continue to evolve since then.
Chris Mannix from NBC Sports Radio, host of the Chris Mannix Show, weekday afternoons, NBC Sports Radio. Download the app, subscribe to the Mannix podcast, check him out at The Vertical. Take care, Chris. You the man.
My pleasure, Mike.